Jamie Harrison. And Antoine C. Wright, it is hard to follow him. Hello, South Carolina. It is always good to be home here in South Carolina with all my dear friends. And first and foremost, I want to thank our illustrious president, Ms. Brenda Murphy, the president of the South Carolina NAACP. And I want to thank you all for being gathered here today. You know, Dr. King reminded us that justice too long delayed is justice denied, and that there is a fierce urgency of now. And my friends, that urgency is not abstract, it's right in front of us. This year, here in the Palmetto state of South Carolina, we will choose a new governor. This year in South Carolina, we'll choose a United States Senator. We'll choose members of Congress all over the state, and every member of the South Carolina State House is on the ballot. And my friends, those choices will determine whether barriers to progress are either reinforced or removed. The time is now to demand the representation that we deserve, the leadership that protects the right to vote, expands opportunity, and reflects the lived experiences of our communities. Last fall, I stood with the NAACP, and we said then that this work is not about nostalgia, it's about responsibility. Not about remembering the movement, but carrying that movement forward. Dr. King did not ask us to be patient in the face of injustice. He asked us to be courageous. He asked us and called on us to organize, to mobilize, but most importantly, to act. You know, my wife started this year with a word. Every year she starts every new year with a new word. This year her word was flourish. Flourish. And flourishing does not happen by accident, my friends. It requires leadership. Flourishing doesn't happen by happenstance. It requires policy. It requires removing the barriers that stand in the way of our people, of our state, and of our nation reaching our full potential. You know, here in South Carolina, our motto is, while I breathe, I hope. While I breathe, I hope. Well, folks, if we are really serious in the hope business, there is only one action that I know that can make hope real. In Orangeburg, in Columbia, in Charleston, in Florence, in Greenville, all across the state. And that one word is vote. So our motto this year here in the Palmetto State is not while I breathe, I hope, but while I breathe, I vote, because that is how we make hope real right here in South Carolina. The fight for justice did not end with Dr. King, my friends. That fight is ours and is right now. Now, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce a few speakers who are coming up today. And the first, I would say, is a dear friend. You know, leadership matters, and especially in moments that demand courage. Today, we are led by a woman who has made history here in South Carolina. She is the first African-American woman to lead either the Democratic or Republican Party in the history of the state of South Carolina. She understands that leadership is not about comfort, it's about conviction, and that sometimes speaking truth to power is the work itself. As chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, she is committed to expanding participation, protecting the right to vote, and ensuring that every community has a voice in our democracy. Y'all, please give a South Carolina welcome to the chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, Madam Chair Crystal Spain.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Good morning, South Carolina. I'm Crystal Spain, chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and today is a day of remembrance. Yes, but it's also a day of great responsibility, because Dr. King didn't just fight for civil rights and deliver remarkable speeches so that we can quote him once a year. He organized so that we could do something with the truth, so that we could do better. And the truth is, this building behind us has always represented a choice to do what's right and what's best for the people, or what's best for a select few. South Carolina carries a complicated history, one that includes some of the hardest chapters of America's story, with also some of the most powerful examples of transformation, courage, and resilience. This is a state where the past isn't buried. It lives in our policies, our community, and our struggles. We remember Reconstruction, a time where Black South Carolinians helped build democratic power just to only watch it be stripped away. And we all remember the Emmanuel Nine, murdered in their own church during Bible study, simply because they were Black. And South Carolina remembers them not just with memorials, but with unfinished work, because we still do not have a hate crimes law in this state. And that's why we're here, because racism is not just about individual prejudice. It's about systems. It's about whether freedom is real in practice and not just in the promised in theory. And nowhere is clearer than in the fight over your voting rights. Voting is how we protect our families. Voting is how we fund our schools. Voting is how we shape our courts, and voting is how we demand accountability. And the reason voting is always targeted is simple, because your vote has power. When the people in power believe that they're untouchable, they ignore the needs of everyday folks like you and me. But when they believe that keeping their job depends on the people, they start paying attention. They start showing up. They start listening, and they start doing what they should have been doing the entire time, and that's working for the people. So yes, in the past time, it is past time for us to organize, not just to win an argument. Those days are over, but to win power for our communities by sending those in power who no longer want to work for us home. With the major elections coming up this year, including the race for governor, the race for U.S. Senator, and tons of local elections, our call to action is plain. If you are not registered to vote, get registered. If you are registered to vote, check your registration. If you vote by mail, request your ballot early. And if you vote in person, take somebody with you. And don't just vote. Sign up to volunteer. Sign up to organize your community and to make sure that your community, everybody in your community also votes. Because when we organize and vote, we don't just participate in democracy, we shape it. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for standing up for the truth. And thank you for continuing to work. And like Mrs. Anaya said, this is our new chant. I love Barack Obama. I love Fired Up, Ready to Go, but the movement is about the future. So the new slogan for us is stand up and fight back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Spain, for that historic leadership and for continuing to speak truth to power. Dr. King taught us injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and this work requires leaders willing to confront power, not accommodate it. Our next speaker understands that justice requires both moral clarity and accountability. As a member of Congress, he has been a consistent voice for civil rights, economic fairness, and for holding powerful interests accountable, including pressing for transparency and answers in the Epstein case, because silence and secrecy have no place in a democracy. That commitment to justice is deeply rooted. His grandfather was jailed in India for standing with Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent movement, instilling a belief that human rights must be defended, even when it comes at personal cost. He joins us here in South Carolina as an ally who believes that democracy must deliver dignity, opportunity, and accountability for all. Please join me in welcoming California Congressman Ro Khanna.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, South Carolina. First of all, let me say about Jamie what I admire. He had no money, he had no connections. Simply through hard work and faith, he has risen to be one of the great leaders of our country. Thank you, Jamie, for what you've done. And at a time where so much in this country is going backwards, I'm so honored to be on the steps of the South Carolina State House with the South Carolina state flag flying high and proud. That's why deep in my heart I do believe we will overcome. I am particularly honored to be here with one of the greatest leaders when it comes to civil rights in the United States Senate, and that is Senator Cory Booker. 5 years before Renee Good was shot, George Floyd was shot and killed. And while not enough has changed, one could say nothing really has changed, one man, more than any, tried to make a change. And that was Senator Cory Booker after the Floyd shooting. So I appreciate his leadership. I appreciate also the leaderships of Andy McDaniel and Jermaine Johnson and Crystal Spain, and you're showing the way forward here. I'm going to be brief because the main act is the keynote speaker, but I wanted to share a few thoughts about why this day matters to me. See, I wouldn't be born in America if it weren't for Dr. King. Jamie talked about my grandfather, Amarnath Vidyalankar. He went to jail twice. In the 1930s, when he stood up against a British king. I don't think he thought that his grandson would be in the Congress standing up to make sure we didn't have a king in the United States of America. But he was jailed in the 1940s. That movement inspired Mordecai Johnson, who was the president of Howard. And he came back and he spoke in Philadelphia, where a young Dr. King, who was at the Crozer Theology Seminary, heard him. And from that day, every place Dr. King went, he carried a Bible and he carried the Gandhi Reader, inspired to build civil rights here in the United States. Well, we all know that the Civil Rights Movement led to the Voting Rights Act, and we know it led to the Civil Rights Act, but what many people don't know is that it led to the 1965 Immigration Rights Act. And if it were not for people like Dr. King and John Lewis and Mr. Clyburn, people from India and Africa and Asia wouldn't have been allowed to immigrate to the United States. It's only because of the Civil Rights Act and my parents were able to come to the United States of America, and then I was born in Philadelphia in 1976. So I'm here to say thank you to the struggles of the Civil Rights Movement. One of my honors when I was in Congress was to meet with Mr. Lewis. And John Lewis said to me, Roe, technology rights are the new civil rights. Technology rights are the new civil rights. And given the debt that I feel to the civil rights movement, now that I represent Silicon Valley, I want to talk about that and what that means for South Carolina and for the country. 1/3 of the nation's wealth is piled up in my district, $18 trillion. The entire stock market of the country is $60 trillion. We cannot build a beloved community if this nation has islands of prosperity and huge masses of seas of despair. You cannot have a country where the billionaires keep getting tax breaks and building wealth, and other Americans are losing health care and child care and education. So I have a pretty simple view on Dr. King's holiday. We need to remember not just what he said about racial justice, not just what he said about peace and war and peace, we need to remember what he said about the economic development to build a beloved community. We need to make sure that the technology and AI revolution gives every person a stake. And there are three things I believe when it comes to that. First, we can make sure that the billionaires are paying more tax so that everyone has health care, education, and child care in America. I'm tired of Donald Trump giving them more tax breaks by ripping away the health care, child care, and education from people across this country. Why? We're making more money than ever before. You're telling me we can't guarantee health care as a human right and education as a human right? The second thing I say is we're either going to create a technology economy where everyone participates, or the racial wealth gap will continue to grow. That's why I've worked for the past 10 years with Mr. Clyburn and Jennifer Clyburn to create partnerships with tech companies in Claflin and South Carolina State and 34 HBCUs, where we have a program with Annie McDaniel and Crystal Spain and Jamie have helped with this effort. 9-month scholarships, $5,000 scholarship, $65,000 jobs. We need to create the new economic wealth across this country. We need to create those jobs across this country so that people can stand up with dignity and fight for equality in America. Let me end with this point. Frederick Douglass, after he was enslaved for 20 years, one of the things I so admire about him is he spoke out not just for Black Americans, he spoke out for Chinese Americans. And he said, I believe Chinese should come to the United States. And in the free air of the United States, the worst of the traditions will fall by the waysides and the best will thrive. And one day we will become a composite nation. As a grandson of someone who fought in Gandhi's independence movement, as an immigrant who grew up in Pennsylvania of Hindu faith, born in our bicentenary, I believe we can become a composite nation. I believe that is our destiny, to be a multiracial, multicultural democracy. I believe the way we will get there is by bringing economic security and independence to every community and every family across this country, to make sure that the AI revolution isn't just working for billionaires, but working for people across the nation. That is how we start to offer an alternative to Donald Trump. Emmanuel Cleaver, one of my colleagues, says, when you meet fire with fire, all that is left with ashes. We need to fight, but we need to understand that when we speak to the principles of America that Dr. King spoke to, when we speak about the hope and aspiration of America that Dr. King spoke to, we will bring this country forward because he spoke the truth. That is my hope today, and I am so honored that you let me join you for this celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Connor, for reminding us that accountability is essential to justice. Folks, before we move to our next part of our program, I do want to acknowledge all of the elected officials that are here with us today. We have elected officials from the schoolhouse to the courthouse to the state house. If you're an elected official, please raise your hand. Thank you all for your service to this nation. Thank you for your service to South Carolina and to all of our communities. And now, my friends, we will have a musical selection from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, South Carolina Choir.
Richest man in the world. Leon. Yeah. He said that he ended up in the first world. He said that his last name. Yeah, I wish it would have worked. Get you up here.
Amherst wheels, they're rolling too, and I tell myself that could have been you. I'm gonna run. I gotta run. Every day I'm gonna run. I gotta run while the blood still running warm, say in my veins. When these eyes of mine is closed, and the blood in my veins is cold. When I step out of life's back door, I won't be able, y'all. Then I can't run no more. I'm gonna run. I gotta run. Every day I'm gonna run. I gotta run. While the blood still running warm, say in my veins. Gotta run. Gotta run. Gotta run. Hills get high, but I gotta run. Valleys get low, but I gotta run. Steps get real slow, but I gotta run. Friends are gone, gotta run. Sometimes when you look like you just can't make it, hills all around you and enemies are coming by. Ain't got nowhere to go, but I steal away. I look up and I tell him I gotta run, 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 run. I gotta run, I gotta run, I gotta run, 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 for the blood still running warm.
Y'all, we gotta run. We gotta run. Now, I hope some of y'all will actually sign up and run for office this year, because we need some of you to run too. There should not be a ballot that is empty this November. Every community should have somebody who runs for office. Give folks a choice. Give them a choice. We need some help up here. Hallelujah up here. Folks, I've known our next speaker since I was 19 years old, and I turned 50 in a few weeks. Thank you. I'm not going to have y'all sing happy birthday to me yet. But from the very beginning, he has been my big brother. Someone who always thinks about others first, who puts people before power, and who believes leadership is about service. From the very beginning, again, he has been my big brother. As a United States Senator, he has carried that same heart into his work, fighting for civil rights, voting rights, criminal justice reform, and economic dignity, always grounding policy in moral purpose. And here in South Carolina, on the steps of the State House, history matters. He broke the longest standing filibuster record in the United States Senate, a record held by Strom Thurmond, who once stood for hours to block civil rights. He stood not to suppress the rights of a people, but to give voice to Americans harmed by policies that divided communities, that weakened democracy and denied dignity. Sorry. Cory Booker stood with me when I ran for the United States Senate here in South Carolina. And it is an honor to stand with him right now on King Day as we continue the work Dr. King called us to do. They say in the darkest days, we see our brightest stars. Well, folks, welcome to one of the brightest stars we have in this nation. Please welcome my friend, my brother, Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey.
South Carolina! I want to thank Jamie for that generous introduction. I indeed did know him back in the days when he had an afro. I want to be quick. I will not be speaking for 25 hours. I want to be brief. The hour is late and the temperature is cold. I want to remind people that we are here right now under the auspices of the NAACP. It was not easy to be an NAACP member in my parents' era. Members of the NAACP were targeted. They were attacked. They were threatened. They lost their jobs, but that organization stayed together, not just because of the stated mission of its title, but because they were demanding that America be the nation of its promise. And so today we are here as a defiant reminder that though they try to stop this organization, it marches on. Now, a year before I was born, April of 1968, King and his lieutenants were in Memphis, Tennessee. They were there to protest for economic rights. People forget that the March on Washington, that when you look at the list of demands that they had, there were more demands for economic justice than there were even for civil rights. And King gave the speech we all know, I have been to the mountaintop, and I have looked over and I have seen the promised land. And we as a people will make it to the promised land. Well, he went back to the Lorraine Motel and he went to bed. He woke up that next morning after his last earthly slumber and went out onto the balcony, and an assassin's bullet laid him dead. Now, if we were all to go to the Lorraine Motel today, it's now a museum, and we were to go out onto that balcony and look over, you would see a line in the pavement that traces where the assassin's bullet came from. What was interesting to me the first time I went there was that there was a stone marker commemorating where King died. And the mothers and fathers of that community chose to put words on that stone from the Bible, from the Torah, from the Old Testament. And the words there, they surprised me. It was powerful. It was almost as if they decided to write words that would be a challenge to future generations. Because they know that this was not about one man, it was about one nation. They knew this wasn't about an individual's yearnings, but the striving of generations. They knew that what King stood for was not to bring light unto himself, but to cast light with us unto the darkness. And so what they chose to write there was a quote from Joseph's brothers. Remember, it was Joseph with his coat of many colors. And his brothers saw him and they proclaimed these words that the fathers and mothers of that community wrote on that tablet. And this is where what is written today where King was slain. The words from the Bible. Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of his dream. That is the question before us. We honor King today, but the truth of the matter is we honor something deeper than that.
Because the dream was not kings alone. It is the dreams of our ancestors. It's the dreams of a slave. It's the dreams of immigrants. It's a dream that was spoken of for all of our 250 years. It's the dream that they fought for in Selma. It's the dream that they fought for at Stonewall. It's the dream that they fought for at Seneca Falls. It's a dream that was denied. It was a dream that made the poet Langston Hughes write, "There's a dream in this land with its back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save the dream for all." I will tell you today that all of us are here because of the people who fought for us and cried for us and sweat for us and bled for us. We are here because of heroes of past who fought for labor rights and union rights. They fought for women's rights. They fought for civil rights so that we can make real on the promise in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and all women are created equal. This is the story of our country, and we honor those soldiers, those foot soldiers of the movement today. We honor them with words, we honor them with songs, but that is not enough. If we leave here today and we don't carry with us the fierce urgency of now, then we have failed as inheritors. We have squandered the wealth. We have surrendered the power. Because what can you say of the American dream today? Well, I will tell you what I believe. I believe it is time that in our generation, we redeem the dream. We need to redeem the dream because still in this nation, people are going bankrupt because they can't afford their medical bills. We need to redeem the dream because in this nation, people who need life-saving prescriptions can't afford them. We need to redeem the dream because in our nation, millions of people work full-time jobs and still find themselves in poverty. We need to redeem the dream because Social Security payments are still low and too many of our elders live below the poverty line. We need to redeem the dream because while China and Germany double down with their investments in public education, we are defunding our schools and not providing for our children. We need to redeem the dream because we have too many of our young people who don't believe the dream works anymore, who see themselves unable to pay for their college education, think that a house for them is beyond their reach. We must redeem the dream. And I will tell you that I am full of hope today. I'm full of hope because of what our ancestors have done. American history, if it is anything, it is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of impossible things against impossible odds. How dare we surrender to cynicism or fall to fear, thinking that the obstacles before us are greater than who we are and who we can be together. How dare we think that we cannot grab the torch from our ancestors and make our strides towards freedom. We are a powerful people, and the power of the people is greater than the people in power. I don't care what they say from the White House. We are the people, and in our generation, we shall overcome. There may yet again in our life be unmasked people jumping out of masked vehicles, sweeping people off the streets, unjustly throwing them in jail. But this ain't new in America. We have seen the oppression before. Remember, Martin Luther King was on FBI watch list. They surveilled him. They trumped up charges against him, but he prevailed and his dream lives on. We are facing dire times. There is reason to be afraid, but remember the truth. You cannot have great courage without staring down great fear. You can't have great hope without experiencing great despair. Hope is not the absence of despair. Hope is the active conviction that despair will not have the last word. We, the people, will have the last word. I tell you this, a lot of people confuse our history. They wait and look to Washington for change. But change does not come from Washington. Change does not come from the State House. Change has always come from the people. We did not get civil rights because years ago, Strom Thurmond came to the Senate floor and said, "I've seen the light. Let those Negro people have the right to vote." No, we got that right because people marched for it. They voted for it. They stood for it. They sweat for it. They cried for it. And like Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, black and white, Christian and Jewish, they died for it as well. And so what will we do now that we are at center stage in history? What will our legacy be? What dream will we leave to our ancestors? What achievements will we make? What battles will we fight? I want to end with this. The greatness of America is found in the neighborhoods and communities. King said it, anybody can be great. You don't need to be a congressperson or a senator. You don't even need to make your verb agree with your noun. All you need to be is somebody whose heart is full of love and their soul is energized by the Spirit. It has always been change brought by the people. We are not an aristocracy. We are not a theocracy. We're not a nation where we said that it's only the elites that will be the powerful. Our system has become so profoundly corrupted now. With decisions from a Supreme Court like Citizens United, they have allowed billions of dollars to pour into our communities. It's one of the reasons why Ro Khanna and I reject corporate PAC money, because the corruption in Washington is out of control. But we have seen corruption before. We have seen dark forces before. But the only thing necessary for evil to be triumphant is for good people to do nothing. King said it. What we will have to repent for is not the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. And so I leave you with this story. I have my roots down here, down south, but I'm a Jersey boy. And there was a storm that came to New Jersey you all heard of called Hurricane Sandy. And I was the mayor of New Jersey's largest city at the time, Newark, and hours before the storm came in, I went out and had 2 police officers driving me in a command vehicle. We were gonna do one more sweep of the city to make sure everything was locked down. And we were driving around and most people had obeyed our orders to get off the streets, but every once in a while I'd see somebody and I'd turn on my lights and sirens and say, "Come on now, get home, get home." Well, as we were driving down this long stretch, as the rain was punishing the windshield and blowing our big SUV around like it was a leaf, I got a phone call. Now forgive me, because I believed at the time that the phone call started with the stupidest question in America. Here's the question. I answer the phone and the person says, "Hello, this is the White House operator. Will you hold for the President of the United States of America?" And I'm like, who says no to that question? I mean, I may say no to it now, but I'm just joking. Now listen, this is about 15 years ago, and I want to be honest with you, I miss Obama. Now I miss Obama, I miss her husband too, but I miss Michelle. And so I tell the operator, yes, I'll hold for the President of the United States. Next thing you know, I'm talking to my second favorite Obama. And it was a beautiful conversation. Then talk about a man of grace and a man of generosity. He not only talked to me about the federal response. This is why I'm so upset, and Rokan and I are working against the cuts to FEMA. But he said, Cory, we're with you. I hung up the phone feeling affirmed, feeling encouraged in a storm. And then my phone rings again. And I answer it, no operator this time, but I recognize the voice immediately. It's the governor of my state. Now, you all don't know who the governor was about 15 years ago. You never heard of him. His name was Chris Christie. You guys don't know who that is. But this is not a time for partisanship. It is not a time for tribalism. When there's a storm, it's no left or right. The storm we're experiencing now, I'll tell you this, Republicans need health care just as much as Democrats do. Republicans deserve jobs with dignity just as much as Democrats do. People want to divide us, but we need to remind people we have common cause and common pain that should give us common purpose. And so Chris Christie and I talked, we had a good conversation, we affirmed each other, talked about what we needed to do. It was a meaningful conversation, I will never forget it, and I hung up the phone. But just as I hung up the phone, the wind and the rain seemed to pick up, and we were going up a hill now, and I looked up, and in the distance, all I saw was this light swinging back and forth, and as we got closer, I was able to make out through the windshield that it was a man that was holding that light, swinging it back and forth in a yellow slicker. We got closer, and then I saw it. At the top of the hill, all the mighty trees had already been blown down, and they pulled down the wires and the telephone poles. It was a disaster of wood and wire, and we pulled up slowly. We would have stopped anyway to take notes and alert the emergency crews, but now my officers pulled me right down in front of this man who had been swinging that light. And I rolled down my window and I saw it was an elderly man. And please forgive me, I almost feel regretful that I did this, but I raised my voice and I yelled at him. I said, "Sir, what are you doing out here?" And then he looked at me as if I had asked him the stupidest question in America. He points over the shattered wood and twisted wire. He said, Mayor, I'm standing out here to make sure no one comes along and gets hurt. I had just talked to the President of the United States of America. I talked to the governor of my great state, and I'm the mayor of the largest city, but I'm going to tell you right now, in the worst storm I've seen in my lifetime, the greatness that I best saw exhibited was not people who held offices on high, but the man who took his light and in a savage storm went unto the mountaintop, held up his light in the dark of night so that other people would not get hurt. No greater love hath a man than this. That is who we are. That is the story of America. Not people with position, but people with purpose. Not people on high, but the grassroots soldiers in the trenches. That's how America is made. That's how we redeem the dream. And so, South Carolina, I ask you right now, will you stand up? Will you raise your light? Will you stand for health care for all? Will you stand for justice for all? Will you stand for economic liberty? Will you stand for public education? Will you stand for your brother and your sister? Because we are Americans. When we stand together and work together and march together, that's when we win together. I tell you this, the secret to our success lies right here, right now, South Carolina. We will overcome. Thank you.
Can we give Senator Booker